So what makes you the Joan Rivers of marketing? Where'd that come from?
I think it's for me, it's people think it's about the sense of humor, but it's more about the mindset and the approach of like, I'm not going anywhere. This is who I am. It's the softer version of take it or leave it, of course. Doesn't mean I'm closed
Yeah.
minded. Of course, I'm open to feedback, but like, I am who I am. This is who I am in the moment. This is what you're getting in the moment. Congratulations. And
Yeah.
I expect nothing less in return.
I love that. How important do you think that is as a marketer? Obviously you've been working on your personal brand a lot, but you've got a pretty awesome rap sheet as well. Where did you start, and how does it evolve into where you are now?
It's been a long time coming. I've been working in digital marketing like off and on, in different ways since I was about 14 or 15 years old. My first jobs were creating content and fan sites and events for some online MMORPGs and virtual worlds. This is before the VR headset craze was palpable. You used to pay like tens of thousands of dollars to like sensors in a room, basically. They're no
Oh yeah.
longer this is before you could just go buy one from Meta,
Right.
easily. Um Still pricey, but one tenth what they used to cost.
Oh
And
geez. Yeah.
yeah, so like that was back when I got my start, and I was doing a lot of this stuff for fun. And then some companies hit me up, and I was a teenager, like, hey, do you want to do it for money? And I was like, sure. This before there was words for it.
Right.
So it's a long path from there how they got to B2B SaaS, but on the point of personal branding, these things have helped me in my personal life, and like therefore, if they help you get friends and relationships and be happy in your personal life, it's a good chance that same exact logic can be picked up and dropped into what you're doing for a living, especially if you're a marketer or a salesperson.
Yeah.
And additionally, it makes work more fun and more interesting because then I have a post today at the time of recording this. It's about, like I attract those that I want to work with while also repelling those I don't want to work with. I'd rather get, instead of 100 opportunities, I'd rather get 10 that I know for a fact are good ones versus 100 just to find out that 90 weren't good, which is, I think most people like, well, I got more. I'm like, but did you get better?
Is that how you can tell if a marketer is good at
Yeah, when they're
marketing?
trying to get everyone, they're bad. Yeah. I also tend to have a sour taste in my mouth for marketers that only talk about like how to do their job in their content. The best marketers are really good at marketing. Um and they lead by example and teach by example. So like I seldomly have content that breaks down like how do I do what I do? I
Right.
just do it in front of
Cool.
you.
And that, everyone, is the Joan Rivers of marketing philosophy
Yeah.
right there.
I'm I'm just sick and tired of seeing marketers talk about how to do what they do. I'm like, okay, well, show me then. Show me you know how to
Yeah.
do this thing you're showing me how to do. I don't want to see the 19th breakdown of how to do social selling. Social sell. Do it.
Right. You know, it, I have been a huge proponent of the notion that the LinkedIn marketing echo chamber is just making us all dumber. And every day you see more and more posts of exactly what you said, which I made a TikTok about this recently where if you're a CMO, I think you should be terrified that your team is on LinkedIn asking for step-by-step instructions on how to do their job. No one wants to have the more nebulous strategy questions or look at things holistically. They want frameworks, they want playbooks, they want just how did you do this? I look at things
Yeah.
like that and go, how what? Because if you're a CMO, there's that should terrify you because there's a reason they're not coming to you for advice or guidance, and let alone the fact that the information they could get, just because someone has 10,000 followers doesn't mean they're good at their job. It's not going to fit
Yeah.
their vertical. It's could be completely irrelevant or just wrong.
There's a lot of platitudes in social media, especially in B2B. And even today, I saw this content creator that she's I'll protect her identity here, but I've met her. She's a great person, but her content tends to frustrate me because it's a lot of platitudes. And even today, she even said like that's a part of her formula is leading with a platitude. And I'm like, I'm like, a lot of what we do as marketers is not something that a novice marketer is going to understand, that you can't just copy and paste and move to another business, ICP, strategy, set stage, list goes on. And in defense of the CMO, for the people that are going on the internet, like if your CMO, marketing is such a big umbrella term. So like I've worked with CMOs that have no idea how to do half my job. And that's fine, because when they were my age, usually they were older than me. My job didn't exist, you know. So so as long as I know the reason why, I'm not too concerned. And I don't want content creators to stop making helpful content. My problem is when they only make guides and those frameworks. I'm like the follower count is losing relevancy. Social media is getting smaller and more niche. And therefore it's going to be less about how many followers you have for credibility, which therefore churning out a ton of frameworks and tips isn't going to cut it anymore. I need to see you doing that as well. I need to see you eating your own dog food. I need to see you acting on the tips that you're giving us. I want to see that you're good at marketing yourself and your business just as good as you are at explaining it.
Right.
Because I think for the longest time, we always taught people to be great at something is also to be great at explaining it. And we got so good at explaining things that we forgot that the formula is you have to be good at doing it also. So it's like we can't, I don't know what happened, but like social media was like, okay, we're all going to be good at this, but terrible at explaining it. Now we're all great at explaining it, but we forgot we actually still have to do the thing that we're explaining. I'm like, yeah, but
Yeah.
the people that are really rolling in the big bucks are the people that are doing both.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to just being able to explain it, I often wonder, are we good at explaining it, or are we just replicating a formula that we see other people with more followers and a bigger audience than us, and just replicating what they're doing and retelling a story that's already been told, to the point where we're playing telephone, and the explanation
Yeah.
at that point, is that even accurate?
That's where it gets really gray, and there's people that study this for a living. It's where you're entering the world of parasocial psychology at that point as well, because social
Right.
media is first and foremost not social, it's parasocial, which is, I'm assuming, not new news to you. And then, of course, also it's not media. It's pipes for media. It's not actual social media in itself is inherently not media. So the name itself is misleading, which I think contributes to the problem. Other thing to keep in mind too is like there's 8 billion people in the world as of recently. Like nothing anybody's coming up with is original, right? It's an idea that somebody else has had before. None of us are that unique. And the sooner you realize that, like the calmer it is, the more like peaceful it is. Somebody had the same idea for Uber. This the guy who had the idea for Uber had the money or the resources to make his idea real. So we got to stop acting like that was the first man to come up with that idea, right? Same thing goes for so many other ideas. Bottled water. I'm sure whoever invented bottled water wasn't the first person to actually come up with the concept of bottled water. It was the first person with the resources to turn the idea into reality. So we know that when it comes to business. So we should really remember that when it comes to content creation, which I think is hard for people to remember. What separates people when I'm from those that are like okay and like do what you explained versus those that I think that are doing very well is learning, you know, the difference between barking and biting.
Mm,
I'd rather have a biter than a barker.
yeah.
So I would rather like people like Evan, you don't talk a lot about community marketing in your content. I'm like, sometimes I do, correct. But yes, most of my content has very little to do with like how to actually do any of the things that I do for a living. And like, well, how do you get your clients just as much as everybody else that does what you do for me? Because I don't talk about how to do it. I just do it. I just do it.
Yeah.
I lead by example, and I can make way more money this way in less time and effort than the person who spends like when I hear people that do what I do for a living in the same business model, they spend way more time making content and spend way more energy making content and make way less money per hour than I do.
Really good point. I think we see that a lot when marketers don't really know which path to go down. Are you going to create content for other marketers and just try to build that audience? Or are you going to provide value to people that might want to give you a dollar one day? You know,
Yeah.
where is that line? And I think that one of the things that a lot of people are running into, one, the job market is horrific. We all know that. And so everyone is saying you need to start building a brand, building your personal brand. And what a lot of people forego is making a plan for that audience once they build it. And
Yeah.
if you're doing that, if you're just building an audience for the sake of building an audience as a marketer, then how is any of that audience going to respect you in the long run? What are you going to do? Are you just
Yeah.
going to try to leverage them to get a job? Are you just going to try to sell them another guru course? Like what are you going to do with them? What is the point? I've always said, stop following me. Like if you're a marketer, stop. Like I know I'm a huge hypocrite. I am building a brand, a personal brand. Like this is
Yeah.
Engine
And
Therapy,
you are a marketer.
and I am a marketer. But at the same time, I keep going. All you have to do is stop following all of the marketers and start following your ICP, your
Yeah, I mean, unless your
audience.
ICP
Like,
is marketers, but that's not a lot of
right.
marketers. That's not, yeah.
And everyone thinks it is.
Yeah, I see. My
Everyone
clients
thinks
aren't
it is.
marketers. My clients hire me
Exactly.
because they're not marketers. They hire me because they don't know how to do what I'm doing. So why would I make content that teach people how to do what I'm doing for people that don't know how to do what I'm doing? They're not going to understand it even. So I just create content that's like getting people to know I exist, attracting people that I have a good chance of liking to like me, right? And then once I can build that relationship, then I can make my money. Then I can make my clients. Then I can do something more sustainable and long term. Otherwise, I'm just shoving out like educational content into the ether, and not that educational content isn't important, and not that you should add value in that way. I think people think that adding value equates educational content. Adding value can also just be, hey, I exist. Here's some stuff about me. Does this resonate with you? Great. Let's be friends. And then we'll see after we become friends if there's a business opportunity. It's not let's become friends and see if there's business opportunities. Let's be friends and then let's see if there's a business opportunity.
Right.
There's actually a quote from the Barbie movie that actually makes me laugh a little bit because it's very similar to this logic of like identity, what we're talking about here. Of like, it's not Barbie and Ken. Maybe it's Barbie and it's Ken.
Yeah.
It's the same logic.
Yeah.
Why would I tell somebody how to do what I do when the goal is to get you to like me enough to hire me to do what I do? I'm going to use the skills that I have to do the job that I want you to hire me for in front of you. A person who doesn't know how to do what I'm doing, or a person who um that just needs someone that does what I do for a living, would rather see an example of me doing it versus a playbook of how to do it. So when I see marketers that are like, well, I want to be a content marketer, fractioning or freelance, whatever, and then they teach people how to make content and they wonder why they're not getting content marketing gigs. I'm like, because I would rather, unless you're trying to get a job teaching people how to do content marketing, that's not the right content. And now you've actually made it so you're less likely to get a content marketing job because a content marketer would know this. So, like, what? Doctors don't teach people how to
Yeah.
become doctors. They teach people how to take care of themselves, which is the
Okay, we're
job of a
done here.
doctor.
Yeah, we're done here. Ship it. It's done. Yeah, drop
So,
the
like,
mic.
why are you
Like,
teaching people how to do your job? Just do your job.
exactly. One thing that I've really thought about when it comes to the why, the mindset behind the marketer just building the audience for sake of building an audience, and the
Yeah.
the fact that it revolves around the instructional, that type of content.
Yeah.
Who's to blame for that? Because I have a theory. When it comes to the why, are they building an audience because that's all they know how to do as a marketer? Like in their job, leads, 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 leads. What do we do with them? I don't know, but we need more leads, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
what you're
sales
measured
job.
on.
That's yeah.
And so they're going,
Yeah.
well, as a marketer, we build we build an audience and get leads, and then we'll figure it out from there. We just want, please fill out this form and download this ebook, please. That's taken the shape in now the form of every marketer who's trying to build an audience for no discernible reason.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of bad practices that I think we're all just kind of waking up to, you know. And I don't want anybody like, well, Evan's saying don't create how-to guides, but Evan creates how-to guides himself. I'm like, there's a it's a balance. The frustration is the marketers for the majority, if not all, their contents. Here's how to do it, unless that is the job that you're trying to get, which is a very small percentage of the marketing
Sure.
profession in the United States. You know, most marketers on LinkedIn, that's not their job. So it's it's alarming to me that we've gotten to a point where so many companies have taught marketers that have taught more marketers that the way you measure your job is solely based on audience size and MQLs. And not that it's not that it's not important to make money out of these leads, and it's not that it's not important to make the sales, but as a community marketer, I tend to sit before demand gen in the funnel.
Mhm.
I sit beyond the front line. You know, I'm deciding where the front line is, and so I measure my job not based on how many followers do we get. I based our job on what percentage of our followers is our ICP versus adjacent to our ICP versus not adjacent to our ICP at all. um, what percentage of our leads close before me, and now what percentage of the same exact number of leads after I worked here for X number of months are closing, right? Assuming sales has changed nothing other than getting higher quality leads. And I usually measure that in not just percentages, but also like dollars, speed, you know,
Yeah.
what impact on the funnel can I make beyond just more leads? Because and the problem though is a lot of leaders in business tend to think more equals better. Their KPIs for marketers are how many MQLs did you get? And I'm like, before we even talk about how many MQLs did marketing generate, we should talk about the grade of the MQLs. Let's grade those MQLs and see if they're the right MQLs, because more won't mean anything. But because of investors and because of shareholders and stocks, and the list goes on, um, that's too much time. That's too scary. That's a
Right.
long-term game, not a short-term game.
Right.
And all those same companies are the ones that have been doing massive rounds of layoffs. Those are the same companies that are getting bought and not for the right reasons. Those are the companies that are having trouble securing their next funding rounds because VC capital is no longer free with negative interest rates like it was for so long.
Right.
It's no longer good enough to have a flashy project. You actually have to have an actual plan, you know? So they're realizing now that that was a mistake, but the problem is they made that mistake for so long that they don't know what else to do.
Right.
And I'm just over here taking advantage of it for a living.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Jeez. I.
Everybody else has lowered the
Ooh.
bar for me. I'm barely putting in effort.
Yeah. It's a good way to put that. You know, being a marketer, especially like SaaS startup, being marketing hire number one,
Yeah.
the pressure, especially in demand gen, true demand gen engines take time. And when it comes to VCs and boards and whatnot, everybody's super open and just, hey, it's green pastures. Yeah, love your thoughts, love your ideas. Let's run with it. And then the end of the quarter comes around, and everybody's tone of voice just gets a little higher.
Oh yeah.
Everybody starts sweating. And yes, I told you in the very beginning, we're gonna have to lean on sales for a little bit while we build this. I'm gonna support as much as we can. Here's how we're gonna divide this between building long term, and here's what we're gonna do to just get money in the bank. To
Yeah.
get some not short sighted, but just some low hanging fruit. To get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
It, but when the end of the quarter comes around, that all shifts to where are the leads? Where are the MQLs? And I'm like, did you remember this conversation, Ryan?
Yeah.
Should I play the recording? And a lot of marketers get into that position and just freak out, don't know what to do, because it
Yeah.
feels, I feel like a lot of marketers are going through situations where they feel like they've had the rug pulled out from under them. And
Absolutely.
when you combine that with being measured on metrics that you in no way can affect in any way whatsoever. The average tenure of a CMO is barely 18 months. Why is that?
Well,
We
there's your
have,
why.
yeah, there you
It's
go. I mean,
degrading. It's a mentally awful situation. It's bad for one's health and self-esteem. Because think about it this way. Imagine if you're in a relationship with somebody and you have a bad habit as a result of a mental health issue or a physical health issue, right? And they go, "Oh no, I'm here. I support you. I love you." It doesn't have to be a partner. It could be your friend. It could be your parents, whatever, right? But then that issue comes up and now they're annoyed by the thing that they said that they were going to support you in when it does come up.
whew,
That's disgusting in your personal life.
yeah.
That's the exact same thing we're doing in the world of work. It's it would be an abusive situation to say, "Hey, I have, insert health problem here. Here's how it manifests when it gets bad. Oh, I'll be there and support you." It flares up, whatever the case may happen, and they go, "Well, that negatively affected me, so you're a bad person. But you just said a few months ago you're gonna be able to support me." That's not hard for anybody listening to this to understand.
And
Why do
then
we do that in work?
exactly, because at that point, you're fired.
And if you couldn't afford the emotional capacity to do that with the person in your personal life, you know what you're supposed to do? Not make that promise. So why wouldn't you have that same logic if you can't afford it financially in your business?
Yeah. I'll give the benefit of the doubt to some degree. I think that everybody tries to be pretty optimistic in the beginning, and maybe it's a little idealistic. Maybe it's a little too cavalier. It's maybe it was a misalignment of goals and expectations, and making reasonable expectations, right? Setting reasonable goals and KPI.
Yeah.
But I recently had a post that just absolutely exploded, where I said that marketing needs to kick sales out of bed and take back what their actual function is, and just set clear, healthy boundaries
Yeah.
where we don't end up in situations like this. And it exploded to the point where people were saying, Is wait, I'm in sales. I want to be friends with marketing." And marketers were going, "We want to help sales." And so the conversation evolved into, well, whose fault is this? And then we eventually get to the point where we're talking about VCs, we're talking about boards, and the fact that everybody gets an infusion of cash, everybody raises another round. Sure, let's hire everybody and their brother. And then, oops, half your team is gone. Sorry, we didn't
Yeah.
think about it. It
They thought about it. They budgeted that in, but they're just not going to announce it, you know. And I've
yeah,
been there. I've been in that company. I've been the person in those, you know. Yeah, yeah. Most people have. I feel like
yeah, most
nowadays.
people.
Yeah, I think to your point, you know, about like marketing knows that we need sales, right? Because we marketers know that their job in most cases, and we're talking about B2B, right? Like it doesn't generate revenue. It generates the ability to generate revenue. Sales generates revenue. We know that. We're not stupid. We need sales to make what we do justified. But sales need what we do for them to be able to do their job at
Right.
all, right? So we do need each other 50-50. And we could talk about like I'm sure there are marketers that are so jaded and so fed up with salespeople that they are terrible to work with. And I've met many salespeople that are equally terrible to work with because for the same exact reasons with the table reversed.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, to your point, it's all coming down from the leadership at the top and I would say it's usually the or in this category, the investors putting the pressure on the leaders and those leaders not pushing back at the investors and going, that's not how this works. Most of the misalignment between sales and marketing, I think, is a consequence of that what we just explained being poorly managed. Of there's a misconception as to how speed is supposed to happen and how things are supposed to launch and how things are supposed to be carried and who's supposed to own what messaging when and where and how. All that because we're all just frantically trying to hit these goals that have been given to us by people who don't even work here.
Right.
and and in my lived experience, I have not seen many VC firms filled with people that have done the jobs of the people that they impact by setting these goals for the people they've invested in. And no
Preach.
wonder there
Of
are so many
course.
founders that are getting pickier and pickier and pickier about where they take their money from. Because I think strong sales and marketing alignment, as hell, strong cross departmental alignment between any department. If the foundation is so dependent on who the leaders are and who the VC firms are, that the lead, because that's the CEO's boss.
Right.
People don't forget that's the C-suite to the C-suite.
Right.
You know, so I'm not even going to shit on the C-suite because a lot of C-suite people, especially early stage startups, are just some person who had a cool idea and was really good at getting people to give them money to make the cool idea a reality. They're not trained to know how to deal with this, so I'll cut them some slack. But
Yep.
it's the serial founders that do know better but don't do any better. And it's the VC firms that think, well, I gave you money, so I can set the goals, and this is what you're going to do. And I'm like, that's not how this works, sweetie.
Yeah,
And if
that
that sounded condescending, that was the point.
right. It really has become just such a toxic relationship. I mean, like you said, you really have to pick and choose because I mean, I've seen founders go from being so ready to just take on the world to sobbing uncontrollably behind a Wendy's. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those where it just
Specifically a Wendy's.
yeah, like it, like what do you do at that point? Because could you have bootstrapped it? Maybe, but you didn't. You went out and raised $5 million,
Yeah,
and here we are. And you bring on, in our case, a marketing hire number one that is going to be run through the ringer, is going to be just carved out of stone and burned out and jaded, just like you mentioned earlier. And just the imposter syndrome sets in. And then once all of that goes to hell, what do they have to show for it? What does that put them? Well, what do? They start building that audience on LinkedIn.
yeah. I one of the things that I tell young marketers, both biologically or professionally, is focus on, there's always that phrase like learn how to manage up, like learn
Sure.
what your boss's goals are and how you affect them. And also like take the similar logic, but to the broader of the company as well. Like who does the company have to answer to? And I don't mean customers in this case. I think people mostly think that's what I mean. I'm like, it's the investors at this point. Who's profiting off of this really? And when you understand how venture capital works, how investors work, angel investors, all that fun stuff when you're a marketer in VC tech land, especially early startups like Series A and earlier, that'll help you figure out if this is the ship you want to get on. You want to vet for founders that push back and understand that not every dollar is worth a dollar.
Right.
Not all money is good money. And we don't, and when I think people say that, they used to mean like ethical versus unethical. And I'm like, yeah, but unethical and ethical doesn't just mean in the context of like DE&I and discrimination. It also just means just good business. Like if you're a VC firm who thinks that you can just go, all right, everybody invest in is required to grow at this rate, that's bad money. That's an unethical business practice. It's an unrealistic, unreasonable expectation as to how money works. And then they go, well, it's fine because we give money out to 10 companies knowing that 8 or 9 of them aren't going to hit that goal. We budgeted that in. And I'm like, if your business model is being built on the predication of being okay with failure at that alarming rate, regardless of statistics saying that, that's a shitty business model. That's
Right.
no different than saying like, okay, well, we're going to hire 10 sales reps knowing that 6 aren't going to hit quota instead of figuring out why our product isn't good enough to hit quota on its own.
Right.
Or what Walmart does. We're going to pay everybody less than a livable wage and just bank on supplemental tax programs, So yeah,
Cool.
we could go on and on and on, So to me, it's the exact same logic of like, you do have to account in for failure, but that should always be that should never be the primary driver as to why you chose that numbers. And in VC land and in C-suite land, that is, I'm sorry, I've yet to be proven wrong on this, and maybe one day somebody will. That seems to be one of the leading driving factors is accounting for failure. And I'm not saying that don't ignore it, but like, is your plan to fail your way into success, or is your plan to become successful and just learn from the failures along the way? Because right now it feels like the former, not the latter.
Right. How does failure play into affecting a marketer's sense of self-worth? Should they be allowed to fail? How often? What does that look like?
You're gonna fail in marketing all the time. You're gonna fail no more, no less than a professional singer, artist, dancer, list goes on. It's first and foremost a very creative role. So I think people need to understand that like you're gonna fail a lot of the time, and you're gonna have campaigns that don't work out as intended. You're gonna have missed deadlines because 96 different people were involved and half of them misunderstood, and there's nothing you could have done better to make them understand. Sometimes it's a them problem, you know. So yeah, it's gonna happen. I don't know if there's like a number that I can assign, you know, but I think it's just like in a relationship. It's more about how you bounce back from it and you're learning from it and how you handle and repair mistakes and failures and missteps along the way than it is about making them at all. Because a failure is just nothing more than an opportunity to learn something. So I'm really only angry when someone makes a failure out of carelessness or out of they knew better and they just chose not to do better, willful ignorance. And
Yeah,
yeah, those people do a good job of tending to weed themselves out. But bringing back personal branding in the conversation, some people are really good at branding their way out of those problems as well. I'll save those
excellent,
people's
excellent
reputations by
point.
not naming them here as well, but there is a lot of people that are really good at marketing themselves to the point where they can market their way out of any misstep, which is a great skill to have, don't get me
Sure.
wrong. Damage control is a PR skill, but it's not sustainable and it will ultimately shoot you in the foot.
Yeah, for sure. So when we talk about walking into a situation as a marketer, getting the rug pulled out from under you, not being allowed to experiment, to fail, that affecting your sense of self, your
And your bank account.
value, yeah, and
So
obviously
many different
your
ways.
bank account. Like, so in so many different ways, so many different things are affected. You mentioned the way that founders are vetting VC firms. What are some of the ways that marketers can vet who they want to work for? What questions can they ask? What red flags should you be looking for?
Ooh, we could do 5 hours on this alone, but, I really think that one, before you even begin asking the questions, you need to be able to talk the talk. So, network with
Mm,
founders that you have no interest in working with, or they don't have the ability to work with you. Just learn from them. Learn their stories. Watch content made for founders. Learn how they talk, learn what they care about, understand what their job is, right? Who their boss is and how that relationship works. Their boss is the investors, right? We've talked that before. So learn the language, understand how VC capital works. There's YouTube videos galore that will give you a crash course on how this all works. So get that out of the way. Second thing is then when you're in these vetting conversations or interviews, ask them like, what was the journey to one, how did this product come to be? Right? What's been the investor journey thus far? Tell me how you got your seed, how you got your A, how you got your B, right? Tell me who, tell me why.
yeah,
Have them give you that whole life story in detail. If they haven't been a founder before, what have they done to get themselves up to speed to be able to do all the things they just answered you on regarding everything I just said? And if they've been a founder before, ask like what mistakes did you have to make before this go around to learn how to do it this way, or are you just repeating this? Like just understand why they think the way that they think and how they're thinking will help, and also who they learned it from, how they learned it from them, those things. um if they can't give you a coherent thought process, and also if they can't explain it to you in a way that's easy for you to understand, um it's going to be very difficult for you two to work together, and it's going to be very difficult for this to be a successful relationship. Also, understand what roles and initiatives need to exist at that company for you to do well in your role. You're a demand gen marketer. I'm a community marketer. We both have jobs that mean nothing if no one's closing deals.
Right.
So like, okay, well, who owns sales here? How has that been so far? How is the close ratio so far? How have you been doing that so far, right? Vet the other parts of the funnel. Okay, well, you guys haven't been around long enough to have a renewal yet. So like, what are your plans for when that happens? Who owns that? How's that going to look, right? So understanding the other parts of the funnel so that way you can get ahead of like, is this going to be a terrible situation to justify my role down the road when I'm going to find out in 5 months that they haven't been doing the things that they need to do in order for my role to be palpable, which means I never should have been given the job in the first place, which means that you just wasted my time. And
Right.
I would
Yeah.
rather you tell me we can't hire you because we don't have somebody to turn what you do into money.
Right. In my world, yes, obviously I look at that from a sales perspective as well and closing deals, but um, on my side of the fence, the equivalent would be data. The data just being wrong or misleading
Yeah,
or
demand gen, you guys care way more about data than community marketers need to, and rightfully so.
well, yeah, I mean,
We
if
give you
you
the data.
yeah, but if for example, if you're inheriting an engine and
Yeah.
you as part of your 90 days, you don't know until you know when it comes to like what the data actually looks like. And everybody's been in a situation where you log into the HubSpot for the first time and just go, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble. I've got 90 days to sort this out." Because
I would,
a lot of
yeah.
dimension marketers aren't even afforded the luxury of getting their own function up to speed because they've inherited a system or an engine that they've got to spend their entire time auditing data and figuring out where the wires aren't
But I would
actually
say that's
connected.
something you should figure out in the interview process. You should really be asking, like, what's the data like? You don't have to see it
Yeah,
all, but like, if I can get a sample size, of this,
right,
and if you're inheriting an engine, I'm going to assume there was a demand gen marketer there before you of some sort, whether it was their job or a task, right? Why did they leave? I would ask that, you
always,
know?
always.
And then if you're building the engine, you better set some expectations as to how this is gonna work, you know? And I think you should always be set expectations. Like, listen, this could be your 90-day plan, but here's the 90-day plan we're going with, regardless of the one that you give me, because I'm the doctor in the room, not you. Now, granted, I'm speaking to the people that have done this job before. So if you're like a 22-year-old who just graduated from college, please tune yourself out right now. You're still learning. But the people that have done this before, like, don't be afraid to be that employee who tells like that it's prescriptive. They're hiring you to be the doctor in this situation. So I'm gonna come in. You're gonna give me a 9-day plan. I'm gonna go on a HubSpot or whatever CRM we're using and go, okay, yikes. You
Right,
know, see this 9-day plan you gave me? Chuck it out the window because whether it's me or any other demand gen marketer, here's how it's got to go. And if they have a problem with that, congratulations, you're dodging a bullet. Leave. That's how you solve that problem. And I think not enough people are talking about that. They're talking about how do we solve this while staying. Quitting is the best thing for you sometimes. And you will get better
tell me
at,
about this.
yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get better at understanding how to detect this before it happens with time. It's just a skill that I think that we all just need to come to the conclusion of. No amount of podcasts, YouTube videos, and mentorship
Mhm.
will save you from this pain. You have to fall off the bike a few times to learn this. So if you are dealing with this, I've dealt with this, and I'll probably still have a few more problems like this in my career. I'm 29 years old at the end of the day. Like you're going to get this wrong. It's especially in marketing. Salespeople have their own flavor of this. They come in saying, "Oh, we got a great lead flow." You come in, and the lead flow is bots from some part of the world that don't even
Right,
speak the language that your product is written in. And you're like, "Well, you told me there was lead flow." Well, I guess the leads aren't as good as I thought they were. And I'm like, "Well, why am I here?" And
right.
now all of a sudden your inbound sales job is an outbound sales job, right? So like
Ooh,
this is not a new problem by any
yeah.
means. I just think that we've all been fed up with it for so long and we're all so afraid of being rude in the interview process. But and I'm like, That's not rude. Let's just take a step back and like, if this is the definition of being a professional, then maybe we need to redefine what being a professional really means. Because the definition, I think, is part of the problem here.
That's interesting. What you're talking about with the definition. I've seen and heard. Well, I've heard a lot of marketers. I've had a lot of conversations where they are kind of hesitant to ask those kind of hard hitting questions, and
Yeah,
sure, maybe that has a lot to do with the job market. Everybody's just eager to please and yada yada yada.
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. But what's worse,
Yeah, right?
right?
Getting a job you're gonna get fired from because of this?
Yeah, because
Or
yeah, it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about the people that can market their way or brand any. I forget
I don't
how
know
exactly.
anybody who doesn't like me who's doing better than me.
What's that?
I don't know anybody who doesn't like me doing better than me.
Ooh, I'm saving that one. I'm saving that one for later. Really well said. It's when you're in one of those situations where you're trying to figure out the next step in your career, in your job hunting process. We kind of touched on it, but what are those red flags? What would make you personally go, no, thank you? And at what, where do they pop up? Do they pop up in the,
We
I
have
guess
this
not
in
in the,
but dating. We have this in dating and friendships. Why don't we have this in work? Like if you're somebody who needs X, Y, and Z in a relationship, like maybe you're somebody who's like, hey, like that good morning text doesn't mean anything to me. And by the way, the only reason I bring up dating so much, I'm a polyamorous gay man. So like I've got a lot of practice of dating because I have 4 partners simultaneously. So
yeah.
like, so like one of the things that like, like let's say that's important to you, that daily communication is important to you, right? Even if like it's like, okay, well, I understand my partner might not be available all the time. So at a minimum, just tell me you're not going to be available. Like this today, it's going to be a
Sure.
crazy. Fine, fine. If it's a red flag for the if somebody doesn't want to do that, right? But that's a necessity for you to have a happy, healthy relationship based on your benchmarks and standards. Congratulations, you're just not compatible. Does it mean they're a bad person? No. Does it mean you have too many needs and you're needy? No. It just means you have different needs and desires. So take that logic, apply it to professional relationships. If I need a company where if I ask these questions and I'm going out of the way to be polite with how I'm asking and being professional, but I'm asking questions that historically might set some people like into an uneasy state because I'm asking like about
Sure.
your data, right? I'm asking
Right.
about all these things, right? If that's a problem and they're going to get defensive or they're going to think that that's rude or whatever, then congratulations. I guess we're just not compatible. Like
Yeah.
we're just not going to work together.
Yeah, I like to have. I've got like 4 or 5 questions that I go to that are just silver bullets that always throw off whether it's a hiring VP or like a CEO founder.
Yeah.
Walk into an interview as a demand gen marketer and go, so what's the plan? Do you want to like grow a long term brand, like long term sustainable growth, or do you just want to be
Yeah.
acquired?
Yeah.
Is the plan just to exit? Because
I'm
those are
so
two.
sick and tired of interviews where I'm the one who's supposed to give the plan. I want to have a 1 hour meeting where I have to give you my strategy of how I do things, but I want another 1 hour meeting where I have to sit down and watch you do the exact same pitch back at me.
Tell me about that because I've had similar thoughts because we're never given enough time in an interview, and I personally have found myself thinking in my head, I know everything you're going to say. Period. I like.
Oh yeah, I'm
I'm
seldomly surprised anymore. Yeah.
exactly like I'm a demand gen marketer in cybersecurity.
Oh yeah, even more.
I know how to do recon. The best of the best of the best have taught me how
Probably
to
more
do
than me.
recon. Like
Yeah.
I'll find it. I'll find out what's going on at your company. Um,
Yeah.
it's I need you uh, to tell me why I should work with you.
Yeah, just as much as you need me to tell you why you should work with me. It
Sure.
needs to be 50-50. I even say, and the better you get at this, obviously you get a sense of like you can be picky, you know. So I also I'm at a point in my career. I typically work with early stage startups, right? Series B and earlier is my preferred. I'll work with later if the culture's right, the timing's right, and I do, but I prefer earlier. And if you're a Series A or seed company, I should never have to ask you to pitch me your company the same way you pitch the VC firm. I shouldn't have to ask you. Series B or later, fine. I'll ask you, but I'm going to expect you to do it. But if you're before Series B, maybe this is unrealistic in some people's eyes. But to me, I'm vetting how you prioritize me understanding this business's roadmap and its history, because I think marketers tend to focus on the roadmap. I'm like, yeah, but there's also the history before the roadmap.
Right.
I even know what led up to the roadmap and also the creation of said roadmap. So like I want to see the same pitch deck. I want to see the same everything, and I also don't want to ask for it because I'm vetting for your understanding of the importance of this. And before someone comments with like, well, how are they supposed to know what's important to you if you don't tell them what's important to you? We're not talking about your boyfriend that you're dating here. We're talking about somebody who's got a finite amount of resources, who's supposed to be demonstrating their business savviness to you to instill trust in why you should put 20, 30, 40 hours of your life into their dreams and goals. Right? This is somebody saying, please help me hit my dreams and goals. So they need to sell you why you should work here, and they should know that this is how you do that. Otherwise, you're going to have to babysit that person and teach that person how to do that. And unless that's the job you want, which I don't think any marketers want that job, like unless maybe you're a
Some of us have had it
CMO.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah, some to preach. But like you have to vet for that person's natural tendencies and priorities, especially in an early stage startup when you sneeze and half the runway's gone. You know what I mean?
Cool.
So yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I'm a big believer in like some questions you ask, other things you just they're purposefully tricks because they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I even have it like when people do a job interview, and I'm like, "Thank you taking so much time for me to interview you for this opportunity to work with me." Like I use that verbiage.
Bold. I love it.
And if somebody has a problem with that, I'm just like, "Oh, it's okay. I can probably quickly look up how much revenue you've generated in your career, and
Sure.
I'm probably half your age and not pacing you." But facts
Yeah.
are facts, America.
Yeah. This has been Joan Rivers of marketing to my audience out there. Evan, seriously, man, this has been fantastic. One of the reasons I started this is to dive into topics like this. The tagline for demand gen therapy is because being a marketer sucks sometimes. And I
Oh yeah,
think
it's very emotional. Yeah.
I think that we're going through a really weird time. We're trying to creep out of post pandemic world. We're still struggling with a job market that is just unrelenting. Everybody seems to be hiring and posting jobs, but no one's actually getting jobs, and everyone's freaking out and just trying to pretend that everything's okay. Sometimes it's not. So
Yeah. And I think some people forget like marketers still face a lot of rejection. It's just not in the same form as salespeople. The no's are a little less obvious sometimes, or the no's are bigger. Like you spend months working on something to get a no. And not that salespeople don't have to put in a lot of work towards something, but like in marketing, you could really be dedicated to one project for a very long period of time to get one giant no that like feels like it's undone months worth of work. But like a salesperson will have like multiple things going on simultaneously. It's like, not that no sucks, but that's
right,
one of many things going on that got to know versus like, I've been focused on this one thing for 5 months just to find out that the only reason I got to know was because you were too stupid to tell me something 5 months ago. That was as obvious as the sky is blue and necessity to tell me.
right,
The
right.
heck, right? And marketers, this is any marketer listening is like, that's not new news. And if you're a marketer, this is new to you, you're probably brand new to the job, and it will happen. It's not a matter of if. So, the most that you can find a way to balance investing who you are into the job while also remembering that like your identity and your self-worth are not synonymous. It's okay to identify with marketing. It's okay to love what you do and make it a part of your identity. I think that's a very healthy thing. But don't let it determine your self-worth, which I've made that mistake many times before. And it is so destructive on your career and your mental health.
Ooh, I think us grizzled vets of marketing. You're 29.
I'm not a grizzled vet. I'm
I
just
oh well, I
traumatized.
mean in this.
You're, oh, you're so funny. Thanks. It's the PTSD.
Yeah, I mean
If
when
I
you
don't
said
make
that, I
this
was
joke,
like,
I will literally die.
yeah, I mean when you said that, I was like, dear God, I'm 37. What, like, oh,
I've been doing this for 15 years. I've just been in B2B for the last 5. I've worked in marketing and hospitality,
oh,
nightlife, virtual
well.
reality, gaming,
So
like
wait, you've been in B2B for
insurance,
5 years now?
B2B tech for about 5 or
Gotcha.
6
Oh,
years now.
well,
Yeah.
welcome to the show.
Right, yeah, but,
Have
like, is
fun.
there's one thing I can say, though, this is a problem in every industry, it's just different flavor.
Sure.
It's the same stupidity in a different piece of packaging. You wanna talk about repurposing content, right? This
Mm.
is repurposing content,
Ooh,
okay? Like,
yeah.
I could have the exact same conversation on a different show with a completely different demographic, and it would still make sense.
Yeah, I believe it. You know, it's the
Trust me,
problems,
gaming was
they
no different.
translate.
Gaming was no different. I have a couple nightclubs that I do marketing for just to help them out at like a lower rate than I'd be just for fill the day with, and like same problems there. This is not unique to VC tech B2B. This is just how it manifests. So maybe that's why I sound so jaded and like beyond my years sometimes because it's just like, oh, I can't run from this.
Oh, you're in. You're in.
Yeah,
You're in it now.
I'm stuck in marketing till the day I die. I like it, don't get me wrong, but like,
Yeah,
who knows? I might work in a completely different industry in 5 to 10 years.
maybe so. Evan, thank you so much for being here, man. This is fantastic. As we
Thank you
go,
for having me.
I want you to give us one piece of advice when it comes to taking care of yourself as a marketer, taking care of each other. Where do we go from here?
Oof. Well, I'm gonna speak to the people that are in the community and social media marketing space, of course, too. Um, if you've already talked a lot about like try not to identify your self-worth with the job here, but also it creates some separation. It's okay to not have the apps on your phone. It's okay to create separate social media accounts so you don't have to see the same content all the time. Especially for us personal brand builders on LinkedIn, a lot of people I know are like that post 2 to 3 times more than me. They're not making that much more money than me. So working more doesn't mean earning more. So be very, very mindful of your time. Rest and breaks from content creation and content consumption are are a necessity for success. They're not rewards. They're not rewards. You need to turn it off in order to get it. So yeah, please take time to turn off LinkedIn. Take time to turn off the content. Um, if you want to watch YouTube to learn how to do marketing, create a separate YouTube account. So when you do open up YouTube, when you're trying to relax and have fun, you don't get more content for work on there. So create separation. I have friends that have 2 phones. Like, I have a friend that has, like, another iPhone with no cell phone plan, it just uses Wi-Fi, it's all she has it for, and that's her work phone, and she's like, "And if it's not on Wi-Fi, it's off, I can't load anything on it." So, you can go get a used iPhone for $50, $100 on eBay, and that'll be your work phone, just because I know us marketers, we need to check things on social to see if they fit better on our phones. I get it, trust me, but anything you can do to create division will do your mental health some good, and stick to it. Tell your friends, like, hey, if you see me doing LinkedIn stuff and I'm off the clock, physically smack my phone out of my hand. The one time I promote violence.
I love it. That is extremely well said. Extremely well said. And on that, we'll end. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Evan.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being here.